they're all versions of me. So there's no, I can say getting to know you. It's just all like my internal life. I mean, my extra, I grew up in Southern California, Zippy's in San Francisco. I grew up with two parents in a house, Zippy's with a single mother and but emotionally, it's the emotional core of how you feel and how you can create a world around those emotions. I was sort of ignored, and here Zippy's kind of ignored and unseen, and I think I was unseen and ignored. So it's just like it's stuff like that. But San Francisco, I was there in the 80s. I did work at iMagna, but in later years than Zippy. I wanted it to be where it was when it was 1985 because I wanted it to be before they knew too much about AIDS, when AIDS was still like I mean, people thought you could get it from like the handrails of a escalator, and they were firing people in restaurants. I mean, it was just really this kind of hysteria that was proven wrong. And even after it was proven wrong, people were treating it as if, it was the beginning of, what do they say? Bad news, false news, fake news. So I kind of wanted it back then, but I did work at iMagna in the store where Zippy works. And later on, and I did on all the shop women she works with, all those things happen. So when I was working at iMagnon, I mean, first of all, I had no clothes. I'd never shopped at iMagnon. I had like thrift store clothes that I fixed up like Zippy, and black pumps that I took a black eyeliner and you fill in all the scuffs and then you kind of rub it with Vaseline to make them look new. And I mean, I had done everything that Zippy does to get this job. And when I got the job, the woman called me and I said, "Oh, the only nice dress I have is the one I wore to the interview." And she said, "Just wear it every day and, save some of your paycheck, and with your discount, you'll be able to buy more clothes soon." I thought, okay, if you don't mind, I don't mind. I'll wear the same dress every day. So I got there, and you think that the grown-up world is going to be saner than the world of children. Like children were always kind of scary and unhinged to me. Like when I was a little kid, I didn't have any kid friends because they just all seemed a little unhinged. Like my best friend was a 70-year-old woman who would drink tea, and we would talk and discuss things, and we'd watch the kids like feral monkeys just running around the neighborhood. And then and then I did get girlfriends later, and who were a little more civilized. But anyway, you're a kid, and everybody just seems slightly unhinged, and you think the grown-up world's more in control. And then I got this job at iMagnon, and I was the youngest person. They'd all been there 20, 30, 40 years, like these lifetime salespeople who are amazing. I mean, they're all these amazing people, and they kind of hated me. I'm just like this young, I'm just like, "Hey guys," like whatever, just like, "Oh my God," I was from Southern Cal. "Oh my God, that's so cool. I can't believe it's so expensive." I was just, and but then I realized that this world is just as crazy as middle school or high school or college or anything. I mean, it was like this wonderful woman that I worked with in petite dresses. Every time there were no customers, she would go in the fitting room and she would close the three-way mirrors like a triptych, and she would get on her knees and she would pray for customers. And she'd be in there praying, and I'd help people. And I think, "Oh my God." And then, another saleswoman would just mean, and they'd steal customers. And then I was always had this creative urge. And so I took the hold tags and I drew all the sales ladies and I made paper dolls. And the praying lady was so great. And she came out and she saw them one day, and she said, and she started picking them up and doing people's voices. And everybody had an accent. Everybody was from a different country originally. Nobody was American born. And so they all had these incredibly great accents. And so we used to play paper dolls, and the store would be empty, and she'd look around and she'd pull out the paper dolls, and we'd sit there and we'd play paper dolls and just crack up bouncing our paper dolls. All girls played them always, and they still exist. So, because a friend of mine he was like, "I don't even know what a paper doll is." I was like, paper dolls were the greatest because whoever you were with, whatever parent would buy them, because it was like $5 for a paper doll book, and it had a paper doll, and you cut out clothes and you put clothes on them. And then essentially what you did, the same thing with paper dolls and Barbies and Polly Pockets and all those things you do, Beanie Babies, is when you're a girl, is you hold it and you do a voice and you create a story and you talk to each other. So we would just sit there and play paper dolls, and it was nutty. So anyway, I wrote a short story about this that was published. And my editor, Kate, said, "Why don't you do a book?" She had read the short story. She said, "Why don't you do a book about that short story?" And that's how here's the copy. Shop Girls came out. Yes, she's modeled. I mean, I had this beautiful roommate who looked like that, who's just absolutely, you'd walk down the street and cars would pull over. She was so beautiful. But she was, Raquel only eats every other day. And this roommate I had, she also only ate every other day. She's just like, you just eat every other day. And because everybody was obsessed with their weight, maybe until like the last 10 years, I feel. So she was only eating every other day, and I tried it for like one day, and I was just like, by 3 o'clock, I'm like, I'm not doing it. I wake up and eat, like I eat. So I only lasted like a day on the every other day diet, but she did that every other day diet. And she was always kind of organizing us the way Raquel kind of organizes Zippy, like, let's write in our day timers. And like that friend, she would do the same thing. She'd be like, she was always kind of, I was just sort of knocking around, and she was always organizing our lives. They're exact. The sales ladies were just, I just was like, you know what? I don't know how old they are now. I don't know. I changed their names. This is exactly who they were. The one I worked with who used to pray, I loved her. She was from Yugoslavia. And I just loved her. And she was just beautiful and kind and good. And she would just pray and play paper dolls. And she was just lovely. And then the French one who always had a candy ball in her mouth is like, uh, always like this giant ball. And she was popping these candy balls out of her pocket and sticking in her cheek. And she was so mean, and she was always mean. And then there were the Canadian sisters who never spoke to me. And, I mean, it's like there were more sales women, but when my editor was reading it, she's like, there's too many people here. Everybody's going to be confused. You got to cut half of them. So I just kind of kept the one who cries and she can't open a register. She existed. It was like this beautiful Greek woman, and they changed the registers. They modernized them, and she couldn't figure it out. It was just like her brain would not. So I don't know what she did when the days we didn't work together, but I would get to work and I would open her register for her and I would close it for her, and she would like cry with gratitude. Like she'd be like, I mean, they were all so sweet, and some of them were mean. And then the cosmetic ladies on the first floor, because I used to walk into the store for a shift. You get there in the morning, I can't remember what time the store opened, 10, and maybe I get there at 9. I think you had to get there at 9 or 9:30. And I would go to the first floor and I would put makeup on, cream, and I go to the La Mer counter where, La Mer cream is still like the most, you probably don't know unless you have a female partner who uses it, but it's still like, whatever, $750 for a jar like this. I mean, it's outrageously expensive, and it smells so good and it feels good. I've never bought it in my life, but I used to go every day, and I'd go to the La Mer counter, I'd put a little La Mer cream on, I go to the Clinique counter, and I put, you just put on all your makeup, and then I figure out what perfume do I want to wear today. And I liked Fendi at the time, so you kind of put your makeup on, and all the makeup ladies were super nice, but they all would give me advice. And they give Zippy advice in the book, and the advice they give her is actually advice that those women gave me, because I couldn't forget it. It was all so hilarious and bizarre that it was just like filed in my brain. And so it's all the salespeople are true. It's the situation, because it's a novel and you have to have conflict and things have to happen and there has to be something that changes and is resolved in the end. The stuff that crashes in on her and what changes and how it moves forward is created, is fictionalized. The store, the saleswomen, and what happens there is all true.